Hello everyone, my name is Uthris, and welcome back to another episode of Alpine Odyssey, our ever-growing theme park that has been in progress for about a year now. Anyways, we are going to continue work on the Roman section today, and for those of you who do not know, we did a live stream last weekend, so for those of you who were there, it might look a little different. And then at the end of that live stream last weekend, we went ahead and grade boxed a few of the structures out that would be in the background right now. But this was recorded before we added those, and then you'll see them kind of pop up partway through this build. So it might look a little weird. Don't worry, it'll be back. I didn't delete everything. Is basically what I'm trying to get across. Also, if you guys aren't coming to the live streams, you definitely welcome to come and suggest building layouts, ride skins and things. You guys were a great help on the previous stream as we've come up with the coaster station being a hippodrome. We have a mini coliseum. We have a auditorium. We have the Roman Forum in the works as well. So, things do happen on live streams, and if you guys, want to come out, and if you have time, definitely come check that out and toss your suggestion there. It's kind of one of the best places to do so. But if you guys don't have time for the live streams, and you still want to drop in your suggestions, best place to do that, of course, here on this video, or you can join our community Discord down below. So, today's episode, we are working on the first pass on the train station in the Roman area. And it's a waterfront train station. And being on the waterfront, I wanted it to be a little bit more like a Roman dock, pier, you could say. And first thing that I thought would be good to have would be a few towers out to the left and the right of the train station. This is going to kind of create a starting point and an end point for the pier. Though we might talk a little bit later in the real-time section about what I have planned for after this episode. And so, yes, this is going to be mostly a gridless structure, right? We want these sloped walls. We're going to be using much of the same color palette as the Roman arch behind us there. And a few, archways, supporting columns. It's a relatively smooth structure. The reference image I was looking at looked to be probably more from like the Egyptian side of the Roman Empire here. And so, of course, it's going to be a little bit more of a sandstone and kind of keep that architectural style a little bit more than just a whole bunch of Roman columns everywhere. Also, it's a little bit more of a militaristic structure, right? So this is kind of like a watchtower that people can overlook, maybe see how ships are coming in, or what have you, guard tower. Standard arrow slit around the top and ways to defend yourself. So we're going to be trimming the archway here with the top of one of these window pieces just to get a little bit of texture. I know we did get comments on the last Roman episode that they don't really want to show a lot of like brickwork or exposed brick because they thought it was ugly. I can see that for sure in a lot of the reference images. However, I would think it would still be used for trim work. At the very least, it's kind of one of those things where they might not have fully used it, but I think it looks good. And as with almost everything on this channel, the rule of cool applies. So the top of it has kind of this little overhang and a stucco little layer there. At this point, we're just testing kind of seeing the size of the towers compared to everything else. And at that point, I kind of realized, well, we're gonna have to sink these into the water most likely because they're gonna block a little bit of the triumphant arch back there. So that is something I definitely need to account for. At the top, you'll see that since this is a perfectly square building, we are testing things out, making sure, of course, all these angles are going to line up. And this is the kind of stitching little segment of these type of builds. I was thinking about for a moment to keep this almost like a rounded corner, right? Just to be interesting, but I think I end up going against this look just because of all the Z fighting that can happen, trying to get a whole lot of these blocks in such a small confined area. That's pretty normal for that. And so the trick that we do to get these hard edges on these is that you extend 2 straight lines out that keep the angle, and that join where they meet is the angle this wall needs to follow. And as long as you match that correctly, you're going to have a nice smooth join when you copy this around to all 4 corners. The nice thing about doing these type of stuff is that you really only have to make the left side or the right side, depending on how you're copying it around, and it should seal up pretty nicely. Now granted, there are some little stitching bits that you're gonna have to toy with a little bit, but these type of buildings are, again, just large spires. This is how you build a spire in Planet Coaster, and it's the same premise that it's basically been since all the way at the start of Alpine Odyssey. At the top, we're going to have a little bit of a sunken window going across here, and we're going to be using the edge of the window as some trim. We're keeping these relatively lightly colored, almost like they're wood supports up there, and then adding a little bit of a black smooth texturing to it, because this shouldn't have any like glass panes or decorative ironworks onto it, right? It really should just be a functional arrow slit, just like the middle spot and the upper third kind of window. That's why we want these to just be holes in the wall, you could say. Basic windows that you can use for defense. The footer, very important in my opinion for these types of structures, right? Because you want this thing to look very sturdy. You want that kind of slow build up in tiers at the bottom. And sadly, since these get sunken into the waterway, they kind of get covered, but I might try and use these throughout the park elsewhere so that they at least get a little bit more visibility to them, right? We could use it kind of towards the entryway to the area as some guard towers over there, and maybe at the exit point of the area. You know how we have the clock tower in the European section as a big kind of break between that and the Aztec area. We can kind of have this be the same thing. The European section, by the way, is kind of the most unique section out of all of these. The European section has, I would say, most of its park area off the shoreline. It's kind of built upon more of one of the streams that lead into this lake, and unlike the Aztec area, Roman, and Asian area, we don't have as much backstage room. So that's going to affect kind of what is used and where. And I'm still trying to decide on how to balance all of that out. A lot of this is kind of a work in progress. I wing a lot of this, so bear with us as we kind of test things out, build some cool stuff, and what works will work, and what doesn't work we'll get rid of and rebuild and try again. That's kind of the joy of the building and creative process in all of these type of games for me. You want to just keep going until you get it right, and then once you get it right, you feel pretty good, move on to the next project, and you are pretty much good to go. So Roman tiles for the roof here, one of those small bracket pieces. The only problem with this is the LOD on these are pretty short, and so when we zoom away, you'll see that roof kind of disappear a little bit. You can put something underneath this that is red, so that when you pull back and these blocks despawn, essentially, you still have that red coloring there. And I did that a little bit, but it's not exactly perfect how we want it. Anyways, the towers are now sunk into the water there. They are perfectly finished and they look really nice. I'm really happy with the way they turned out. And at this point, we're gonna go ahead and start on the main pier. We are going to have a long wooden pier going out into the lake itself. I'm still on the fence on whether or not I want to make this accessible by guests, because right now it's really just 100% aesthetic, which is perfectly fine. There's plenty of those elements here in this park. But yeah, so we're just gonna lay down a 4-meter tile almost kind of rough up the planks a little bit, right? Because you don't want a perfectly smooth surface when you're dealing with wood, or especially dock work such as this. A bit of a railing, just to keep people from falling off, because leave it to anyone, they'll fall off a pier or into a lion cage or what have you. With a fence or no fence, people are going to fall off these things. Making sure the tile set is going to line up pretty well. Go in, clean that up, move this rail to the other side, and then you're pretty much ready to start copying, pasting this thing out. And for those of you who are wondering why this pier is so high off the water, it wouldn't really be functional. One of the reference images that I was using for like Roman docks and pier layouts, they had this kind of bridge coming over. I think it was like some sort of model of a Roman small village or something. And this bridge had a very interesting, in my opinion, support design. It wasn't arched, it wasn't made out of stone, it was all wooden. And so I'm essentially using that as my reference to make this whole pier, even though it was really designed to be a bridge. So it's I don't know. I'm thinking about adding some cranes onto it so that it might look a little bit more functional for larger ships. And then I think this weekend on the live stream, we might tackle a little bit more of the dock works and maybe even get a ship built over here just for some more decoration. Because I think more the better when it comes to these train stations. You really want to give them a whole lot of area to look at. Really like these logs going across the bottom here. Not only are these kind of the main support bearing kind of beams going into the actual stone of the water, but it is also, in my opinion, I don't know, by the way, hardly anything about piers, but to me, they secondarily function as breakwaters. So having this shape to the left and the right of those wooden supports, if there was anything in the water or if you have rough seas, it would kind of break and catch a lot of that material and try and keep as much of this support intact for as long as possible. Now, this being a wooden pier, it is probably a little bit easier to maintain than stone, but however, it also has the same trade-off of which that it probably breaks down a little bit easier than stone would. But I like it. It's nice to kind of bring some more of that wooden dock look that we might have from the European section over here into the Roman section. Hopefully you guys like that as well. Of course, make one set, copy it over, and copy and paste is your best friend every time for Planet Coaster. It's really it's just such a huge time saver. There's so many creative building games out there that don't even have like a mirror mode in building, or a really good functional copy and paste mode with some sort of gyro to move things exactly. So I think even though Planet Coaster doesn't have a mirror mode like some of these other games, the copy and paste function itself is such a huge time saver. I really encourage you to get really good with it, really comfortable with copying, pasting, using the gyro as much as possible. It's pretty broken as it is for the most part. It's just, the benefit is huge. Workflow, getting quick at putting down details, really saves yourself a lot of time. And I will say I'm not the best at that. I tend to do a lot of redundant work, especially like with things like this. For example, like I built this kind of support wooden structure coming off the docks here. I have to copy it over, mess with the gyro a little bit, reselect the other one, and then try and copy that over to the other side. And I think if I would have taken a little bit more time and actually attached it to a tile set, it might be a little bit easier. But I think with the Roman area, unlike the last two sections, I'm going to try and not use a tile set. Simply because I think we can get a little bit more character without one. A little less repetitive in the building, right? I want some more kind of unique buildings. But the roof tile set might be the only thing that we really need to the Roman area. The roofing tends to be pretty consistent throughout this theme, And so we might try and use some of the European roof set just because it's already red and we have some different angles to use. Might save us some time down the road. So ladders are the main way to get to these lower piers. And these lower piers are kind of like the main unloading, loading ones for like say small fishing boats. I am thinking about adding like a fish market somewhere. I think that would be really cool to do. I just don't know where yet, or how I'm even going to get that to be functional with the way stalls are in Planet Coaster, since we don't have just an unmarked desk or just a kiosk to use for really anything that we want, which I really hope they add at some point, like they do in not Planet Coaster, Roller Coaster Tycoon 3. That versatility is something that is really missed when it comes to this game. Anyways, the last thing that we're going to build on this dock pier thing is a little bit of a storage house. This is going to be where the queue most likely ends up and the exit point for this transport ride. I wanted something small, right? Not as big as like say the granary over by the roller coaster Whirlwind, but something small enough that you can still see over it and see the archway. I was hesitant at first to even put any building here, so if you guys want, you can let me know how this turns out. Other than that, I'm going to finish this off the speed build, and we will see what it looks like in real time right about now. Okay, so here we are, taking a look at, I guess, part one, as we said, of the train station in the Greco-Roman area. We have this pier coming off the train station itself. The train station I am foreseeing as kind of the unloading and loading section, kind of where all the shipments are stored while they're getting put on or offloaded from a boat. We have a few little crane systems by ropes just on these lower levels. Again, I might try and add maybe a hand-built one on a couple of these outriggers on the piers, just so that we can maybe unload off onto that deck. Not quite 100% sure about that. You guys, I'm sure, will let me know in the comments down below what to do, change, and edit on this. We have the two guard towers to the left and the right. For those of you who noticed at the speed build all the gray box missing, it is back now, of course, with a few towers up on the upper section as just a rough idea currently. But yeah, no, this is surprisingly a lot of part counts, right? Whenever you do a lot of planking like this, it does take up a lot of part count. I am still really only getting about 15 FPS in Planet Coaster, so that is still a concern, but I think it hasn't really dropped below 15 in such a long time that we are kind of evening out at about 250,000 parts. The frame rate isn't going to get much worse than this, I don't believe. I could be wrong. I definitely could be wrong. We're going to be at 1 million parts at some point, and then I'll have the conversation on Alpine Odyssey dying. Right, so all of these are connected down to the actual water level. I wanted that to be a thing. I definitely want this to look good and believable, right, to support itself over the water. The same thing with all of our supports that have touched the water. And we want this to go all the way down to the rock there. A little bit of a basic storage shed for now. Until I put the queue lines in here, I don't know what details to add. So we might try and polish this up on this weekend's live stream. And that is basically it. Just a lot of part count involved in this, you know, between a fully basically gridless tower and a detailed wooden pier coming off a stone slab. However, there are some questions for you guys. Number one, hope you guys like the layout of everything so far in its gray boxing phase. I don't know how many of you have seen how it's all coming together. I'm going to go over a few of these things now so you guys can give me details on what to do down below. Over to the left, that is the planned area for the coaster station. It's going to be a inverted coaster. It's going to be a hippodrome over there, which is basically a more rectangular coliseum, you could say. Over here, This is the Roman Forum. A lot of maybe kind of a major food court restaurant area. I think that would be nice. We have our theater over here, amphitheater actually. So it's going to have that seating going up the natural landscape, mostly uncovered. We might have a few tarps at the top rung just to provide some shade. We have a little bit of a villa or townhome look coming into the staircase. And then over here by the swings, we have a rough marquee for a small coliseum. And we'll see how that works. However, this green space, what I'm thinking about doing is kind of that fish, kind of low tier market area, mainly because I want to keep this area to have a low roof line so that people can still see the archways and out from the archways. And then back through here, we're probably going to keep doing some more Roman villas, maybe another restaurant or two back through here. And then of course the coaster, which is a whole other beast itself. Anyways, it's gonna be a while. Now we're gonna be here for a while, building up this whole coastline. And as this gets finished, I tweeted out that it's gonna be a little crazy that Alpine Odyssey will be taking up half its full size at that point. I hope you guys are excited. I'm pretty excited to see this project and where it's going over time. If you guys want, this is the end of this episode. Definitely subscribe to this channel for more creative goodness such as this. Hit that like button. Go ahead, join our Discord down in the description of this video if you want. And I will see you guys in the next video.